The city was alive with lights and laughter, the air filled with the crisp bite of winter. Snow fell softly on the streets, covering the sidewalks and rooftops in a delicate white layer that shimmered under the glow of Christmas decorations. Inside a tall glass-walled skyscraper, Richard sat alone at a large dining table. The room was quiet, almost eerily so, except for the soft clinking of cutlery against fine china and the faint hum of the air conditioning. Despite the grandeur around him, the polished wooden table, the gleaming silverware, the carefully arranged decorations, there was an emptiness that even wealth could not fill. Richard pushed his fork across his plate, hardly tasting the food. He had spent the morning in meetings talking numbers and strategies, making decisions that affected thousands of lives. He had spent the afternoon signing documents and reviewing reports. But now, sitting alone with the city lights stretching endlessly before him, he felt a weight pressing down on his chest. It wasn't hunger, nor fatigue, nor even the cold that made him shiver. It was the loneliness that had been building in him for years. He glanced at the empty chair across from him, a chair that had not been used in years. Family visits had become rare and friendships even rarer. Time had a way of slipping away from him, leaving behind nothing but achievements and milestones, but no one to share them with. His eyes wandered to the window where he could see families walking by on the streets below, bundled up in scarves and coats, holding hands, carrying bags of gifts. Their laughter echoed faintly through the glass, and he felt a pang of longing. Richard remembered Christmases from his childhood. He had been a different child then, joyful, hopeful, believing in magic and the warmth of family. He remembered decorating the tree with his parents, the smell of cookies baking in the oven, the excitement of waiting for Santa. But those memories felt distant, almost unreal, like echoes of a life that belonged to someone else. He had worked hard to build his empire, to achieve success, to ensure security and comfort, and yet sitting here in his luxurious apartment, he realized he had traded something far more precious for all of it. The phone on the table buzzed softly. A message from a colleague popped up, wishing him a Merry Christmas. He stared at the words, feeling a hollow smile tug at the corners of his lips. The thought of calling anyone, of talking to anyone beyond the necessary professional greetings, felt exhausting. He was so used to being alone that the idea of company, even friendly company, seemed foreign and uncomfortable. As he sipped his drink, Richard's mind wandered to the people he had lost. Old friends who had moved on, relationships that had faded, loved ones who were no longer there. He realized that all the accolades, all the material wealth, all the power in the world could not replace the warmth of a human connection. A feeling of sadness settled over him, heavy and unrelenting. He had created a life of success, yes, but it had come at the cost of companionship, of joy, of simple human moments that now seemed so far out of reach. Outside, a group of children ran through the snow, their laughter ringing bright and clear. Richard watched them, a part of him yearning for that innocence, for the uncomplicated joy of living in the moment. He remembered the way his sister used to tug at him, insisting he join in their games despite his reluctance. He smiled faintly at the memory, a bittersweet ache filling his chest. That part of life, that simple, pure happiness, seemed like a distant dream now. The restaurant across the street was bustling with activity. Families gathered around tables, sharing meals, exchanging gifts, and creating memories. The warmth from their conversations, the bright decorations, the festive music, all of it reached him even through the glass. Richard felt a pang of envy, not for their wealth or possessions, but for their togetherness, for the bonds that made their celebrations meaningful. He had all the money he could ever need, but it did not buy laughter, companionship, or love. Richard's gaze returned to his own table, empty and silent. He pushed the food around his plate, feeling no desire to eat. The decorations on the table, which had seemed so elegant earlier, now felt like reminders of what he lacked. A small golden ornament caught his eye, its reflection shimmering in the soft light. He picked it up, turning it over in his hand, thinking about the years that had passed, the moments missed, and the memories he had yet to create. He remembered the advice given to him by his mentor years ago. Success is nothing without someone to share it with. At the time, he had nodded politely, but the words had not resonated. He had been too focused on climbing higher, achieving more, proving himself. But now, sitting alone on Christmas Eve, the truth of that statement hit him with a force he could not ignore. The realization was almost painful in its clarity. All the accomplishments, all the power, meant little if there was no one to share the simple joys of life. The lights outside flickered as a car passed, momentarily casting shadows across the room. Richard looked at the city below, feeling a strange mixture of longing and hope. He thought about the people walking hand in hand, the families laughing together, and he realized that perhaps, just perhaps, it wasn't too late for him. Maybe there was a way to reconnect, to find joy, to experience the warmth of human connection once more. Richard's eyes fell on a small, handwritten note that had been left on his desk by a secretary earlier that day. It was a simple message. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Richard, wishing you happiness and peace." He smiled softly, feeling a flicker of warmth. It was not much, but it was a start. A reminder that even small gestures could reach across the void of loneliness and bring comfort. He finished his meal quietly, the room now feeling slightly less cold, slightly less empty. The thought of venturing outside, of interacting with others, had always seemed daunting, but tonight the idea carried a new weight, a possibility. Perhaps he could step out of his self-imposed isolation, even for a moment, and experience the world beyond the walls of his apartment. Perhaps he could rediscover the simple joys that had once been so abundant in his life. The snow outside continued to fall, soft and silent, blanketing the city in a serene white. Richard stood by the window watching the people below, feeling a mix of melancholy and anticipation. There was a quiet beauty in the world, a reminder that life moved forward, offering new experiences and unexpected connections. He felt a stirring within him, a small but persistent hope that the loneliness he carried could be softened, that the walls he had built around himself could be gently broken down. He turned away from the window, his mind brimming with thoughts of the past and possibilities for the future. The room was still, the lights dim, the table set for one, but Richard felt a subtle shift within him. The day was not over, and perhaps, just perhaps, the night could bring something unexpected, an encounter, a gesture, a connection that would remind him of the simple, profound beauty of sharing life with others. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to believe that Christmas could bring more than memories and solitude. It could bring warmth, laughter, and perhaps even a touch of magic. He took a deep breath, the cold winter air pressing gently against the glass, and he allowed himself to hope. Not in the grandiose sense of miracles or dramatic change, but in the small human sense, the hope that connection was possible, that kindness could be found, and that even a lonely Christmas might lead to a moment of joy, a spark that could light the way toward something more meaningful. For the first time in years, Richard felt a faint but undeniable sense of anticipation, a quiet curiosity about what the night might hold, and a readiness to step beyond the walls that had confined him for so long. Outside, the city sparkled with festive lights and decorations. The snow covered the streets, turning every rooftop, tree, and sidewalk into a soft white landscape. Children ran through the streets, their laughter piercing the cold air, echoing off buildings and bouncing from one corner to another. Parents followed behind, carrying shopping bags, calling out reminders to stay close, their voices warm and filled with affection. Across one particularly busy street, a small girl with bright eyes tugged at her mother's hand. Lily, no more than 6 years old, was full of energy and curiosity. She wore a red scarf wrapped around her neck and mittens that were slightly too big for her tiny hands. She had been dragging her mother, Anne, from shop to shop, trying to see everything that sparkled during Christmas. Anne, a single mother, smiled softly, tired but happy to see her daughter's excitement. Money had been tight this year, but she had promised Lily that they would enjoy Christmas, even if it was in small, simple ways. Lily's eyes caught sight of a tall glass building across the street. She stopped abruptly, her mittened hands pulling her mother's arm. "Mom, look, that man! He's all alone in that big place. He looks so sad." Anne followed her daughter's gaze and saw a man sitting alone at a table near the window. He was well-dressed, but the weight of solitude was visible in his posture. He ate quietly, seemingly unaware of the bustling city outside. Anne smiled gently. "He's just someone having dinner by himself, Lily. Not everyone has family around at Christmas." But Lily's small voice was persistent. "Mom, he looks really lonely. I want to say hi. Maybe he wants to be our friend." Anne hesitated, unsure if this was a good idea, but there was something pure and earnest in her daughter's eyes. She had always admired Lily's compassionate nature, the way her daughter noticed feelings that adults often overlooked. With a determined nod, Lily took a deep breath and walked toward the entrance of the building. Anne followed, her heart pounding slightly. The lobby was quiet, decorated with a tall Christmas tree adorned with lights and ornaments. The receptionist looked up in surprise as Lily approached, tiny against the grandeur of the space. "Excuse me," Lily said, her voice sweet and clear. "Can I see the man sitting alone by the window? I want to say hi." The receptionist frowned, uncertain, but saw the sincerity in the girl's face. She hesitated for a moment, then gestured toward the elevator. Lily's mother caught up, holding her hand. "He's just a man," Anne whispered softly. "We'll be careful." The elevator ride was short, but to Lily it felt like a journey into a different world. The doors opened to a quiet floor, and there he was, the man she had noticed from the street. Richard looked up from his plate as the tiny figure approached, curiosity and caution in his eyes. His life had been so full of serious meetings, contracts, and negotiations that a child's straightforward approach was almost shocking. Lily stopped in front of the table and smiled shyly. "Hi," she said softly. "Do you want to have dinner with us? We can share our table." "It's Christmas," Richard blinked. He hadn't expected anyone to speak to him, let alone a child. For a moment he was silent, unsure if this was real or some trick of the mind. Her eyes were bright, unflinching, filled with pure honesty and kindness. He looked down at the empty chair across from him, the chair that had been unused for so long, and then back at Lily. Anne, standing behind her daughter, gave a small nod, encouraging Richard to respond. The world seemed to pause for a heartbeat. The noise from the city, the hum of the elevator, the clinking of dishes all faded into a soft background. Richard felt a tug at his heart, something he hadn't felt in years. He realized that this child, so young and fearless, was offering him something priceless. A moment of connection, a chance to belong, even if only briefly. He cleared his throat, his voice unsure at first. I don't know. I mean, it's very kind of you. Thank you." Lily's smile widened and she nodded eagerly. "It's okay. We just want to share our dinner." "You can sit with us, please." Richard felt a warmth spread through him, a mixture of surprise, joy, and disbelief. He had spent decades building walls around himself, convinced that no one could understand him, that no one could bridge the gap between his world and theirs. Yet here was a little girl, fearless and sincere, tearing down that wall with a simple invitation. He hesitated, then slowly nodded. "All right," he said, a faint smile breaking across his face. "I'd like that very much." The three of them moved to a small, cozy restaurant nearby. It was nothing like Richard's lavish dining room, but its warmth and cheer were immediate. Families were seated at tables adorned with simple decorations, the aroma of roasting meat and baking bread filling the air. The atmosphere was lively, yet intimate, a perfect place for someone to feel the spirit of the holiday. They found a table near the window, and Lily climbed onto her chair, eager to share her stories. She began talking about her school, her favorite games, the adventures she had with her friends, and even the small mischief she had gotten into that week. Richard listened, smiling softly, sometimes chuckling awkwardly. He realized how much he had missed the simplicity of listening to someone speak from the heart. Without agendas or expectations, Anne shared a little about her day as well, the challenges she faced as a single mother, the joy she found in seeing her daughter happy. Richard, in turn, spoke carefully about his own life, revealing fragments of loneliness and regret he had never shared with anyone. The conversation flowed slowly at first, then more naturally as the hours passed. Each shared story, each laugh, each quiet moment of understanding chipped away at the loneliness Richard had carried for so long. The restaurant staff noticed the unusual trio, their curiosity piqued by the sight of the well-dressed man sitting with a small girl and her mother. But rather than judgment, they felt the warmth of the interaction. There was a spark in the air, a reminder that human connection, no matter how unlikely, was powerful. As the dinner continued, Richard found himself genuinely enjoying the moment. He asked Lily about her favorite Christmas traditions, and she eagerly explained the games she played, the songs she sang, and the excitement of waiting for Santa. Richard laughed softly at her enthusiasm, the sound unfamiliar to him but deeply comforting. He noticed that the weight he had carried for years, the emptiness, the solitude, was lifting, replaced by a new sensation, hope. By the time dessert arrived, the bond between the three had grown. Lily handed Richard a small handmade card she had prepared for him, decorated with drawings of snowmen and Christmas trees. The words inside were simple: "You are never alone." Richard felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. It was a gesture of pure kindness, a reminder that even in his isolation, there were moments of light, moments of connection that could change everything. The evening ended with laughter and warmth, a stark contrast to the quiet and solitude of Richard's apartment just hours before. He walked them to the door, feeling a strange mixture of gratitude and disbelief. The snow continued to fall softly, covering the city in a peaceful white blanket, as if marking the beginning of something new. Richard watched Lily and Anne disappear into the snowy night, their figures small against the glow of the city lights. He felt a stirring in his heart, a realization that life, even for someone like him, could still hold unexpected joy. The walls he had built around himself were not unbreakable, and the world outside, full of simple human moments, was waiting for him to step in and embrace it. For the first time in a long while, Richard felt the warmth of hope, the possibility of friendship in the quiet, undeniable truth that no one truly needed to be alone. Richard walked back to his apartment after the evening with Lily and Anne, the snow crunching softly under his feet. Each step felt lighter than it had in years. His mind replayed the dinner over and over, every laugh, every small story, every moment of genuine connection. For decades, he had believed that wealth and power could fill the void inside him. Tonight, he realized how wrong he had been. It was not the material possessions that brought joy. It was human connection, kindness, and shared experiences. As he stepped into his apartment, he noticed the quiet and emptiness he had always been accustomed to. But tonight it felt different. The silence was no longer oppressive. It was reflective. He poured himself a drink, sat by the window, and gazed out at the city below. The streets were still bustling with holiday cheer, lights shimmering in every corner and people hurrying to finish last-minute shopping. He thought about Lily's small, determined voice, the invitation she had extended so freely, and it struck him how something so simple could impact a person's life profoundly. He remembered moments from his past, Christmases long ago when he had been a child full of wonder and hope. His parents had worked hard, but there had always been warmth and laughter at home. The memory of his sister's playful teasing, the scent of freshly baked cookies, the excitement of waiting for Santa, it all seemed like a different lifetime. Over the years, he had focused solely on ambition, climbing the corporate ladder and accumulating wealth. But now he understood the cost of that focus: isolation and loneliness. The next morning, Richard woke up with a strange mix of anticipation and curiosity. For the first time in years, he looked forward to leaving his apartment, to stepping out into the world with the hope of encountering something meaningful. He dressed casually, wanting to feel less like the high-powered CEO and more like someone capable of being part of the human flow around him. He left his apartment and wandered into the streets, letting the energy of the city envelop him. Lily and Anne were already out, carrying a small bag of treats. They had decided to continue their Christmas walk, enjoying the snowfall and the decorations. Lily's eyes lit up when she spotted Richard approaching. She ran toward him and he bent down slightly, smiling warmly. "Good morning," he said, feeling the awkwardness fade. Lily's mother smiled softly, greeting him politely, sensing the genuine shift in his demeanor. The three of them continued walking through the city, pausing at the decorated storefronts, watching other children play, and even sharing a few small snacks they had bought. Richard found himself laughing genuinely, responding to Lily's endless curiosity and sharing stories from his own childhood. Each moment brought a sense of joy he had long forgotten. He realized that happiness was not something to be bought. It was something to be experienced and shared. As they walked, they passed a small community center where volunteers were serving meals to people in need. Lily's eyes widened with curiosity and concern. "Mom, can we help them? Maybe give them some food?" Anne nodded, feeling proud of her daughter's compassion. Richard looked at them both, feeling an unfamiliar pull in his chest. He realized that he had spent so much time in his own world that he had forgotten the simple act of giving could bring fulfillment. They approached the volunteers, and Richard offered to help in any way he could. He found himself serving meals, engaging with people from all walks of life, and hearing stories that reminded him of the broader world beyond his corporate empire. Lily handed out sandwiches with enthusiasm, chatting with the children who received them while Anne assisted wherever needed. The experience was eye-opening for Richard, a stark contrast to the sterile environment of boardrooms and business meetings. He felt a connection, a sense of purpose, and an understanding that true richness came from compassion and human interaction. After spending the morning at the center, they returned to a nearby park. Lily insisted they feed the birds, and Richard found himself laughing at her insistence, throwing crumbs carefully to watch the birds gather. The simplicity of the activity, the shared joy, was profound in its own way. Richard felt lighter, unburdened by the constant stress and expectations of his corporate life. He began to understand that moments like these, small and seemingly insignificant, held more value than any deal he had ever closed. They found a bench and sat together, sharing stories and reflecting on the day so far. Lily asked Richard about his favorite memories of Christmas, and he told her about the games he used to play with his sister, the traditions his parents had followed, and the small joys that had shaped his childhood. Lily listened intently, asking questions, and Richard felt a sense of connection he hadn't known in years. He realized that by opening himself to others, by allowing himself to be vulnerable, he could experience life in a richer, more meaningful way. As the day turned to evening, the city lights began to glow more brightly, reflecting off the snow and creating a magical atmosphere. They walked back toward the restaurant where they had dined the night before. Richard noticed the small decorations in the windows, the laughter of families, and the warmth that seemed to radiate from every corner. He felt a profound gratitude for the chance encounter with Lily, a reminder that life could change in unexpected ways, even for someone who thought they had everything yet had been missing the most important things. Dinner that evening was a continuation of the connection they had started the previous night. Lily chatted endlessly, sharing her excitement for Christmas, and Richard listened, genuinely engaged. Anne contributed her thoughts and stories, and Richard found himself opening up more freely, sharing experiences he had kept to himself for years. The laughter, the shared stories, and the warmth of human connection created a bond that transcended age, background, and circumstance. Richard realized that Christmas, a time he had always associated with material expectations and solitary reflection, had taken on a new meaning. It was no longer about wealth, power, or status. It was about connection, kindness, and the joy of sharing moments with others. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment, a recognition that even in the most unlikely encounters, life could offer opportunities for transformation, healing, and happiness. The night ended with Lily handing Richard another small card, this one with drawings of stars and a snowman. The words inside read, "Thank you for being our friend." Richard held the card close, feeling a warmth in his heart that he had not felt in decades. It was a simple gesture, yet its impact was profound, a testament to the power of kindness, innocence, and genuine human connection. As he walked back to his apartment, the snow falling softly around him, Richard reflected on the day's events. He realized that the walls he had built around himself were not unbreakable. The connections he had made, the laughter he had shared, and the kindness he had witnessed were reminders that life, even for someone who had long believed themselves alone, could still be filled with joy, love, and meaningful experiences. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a hope that even in the midst of his busy, often isolating life, there were opportunities for connection, compassion, and happiness waiting to be embraced. The following day, Richard woke up with a sense of anticipation he had not felt in decades. The previous evenings and the day spent with Lily and Anne lingered in his mind like a warm, comforting glow. The feeling was strange yet welcoming, like stepping into sunlight after years in shadow. He had long been accustomed to mornings filled with work emails, phone calls, and strategic thinking. But today, he felt a desire for something different. He wanted to continue exploring the warmth and connection he had begun to experience. After a simple breakfast, he left his apartment, the snow crunching softly under his shoes. The city was quieter than the day before, still coated in white but with a calm that seemed to encourage reflection. Richard's thoughts drifted to Lily's boundless energy, her bright eyes, and the pure innocence in her invitation to share dinner. He realized that her act of kindness had sparked something profound within him, a desire to connect and to be part of a world he had long kept at a distance. He spotted Lily and Anne waiting near a small cafe on the corner, Lily ran to him, her laughter filling the air, and Richard bent slightly to meet her at eye level. "Good morning," he said, his voice carrying warmth and familiarity. Lily giggled, tugging at his hand to lead him toward the cafe. Anne followed, a soft smile on her face, sensing the change in Richard. There was a lightness to him now, a presence that had been absent for years, and she felt a quiet happiness at witnessing this transformation. Inside the cafe, the atmosphere was cozy, with the scent of freshly baked bread and warm coffee filling the air. Families and couples chatted quietly, their laughter blending with the soft holiday music playing in the background. Richard marveled at the simplicity and comfort of the place, realizing that happiness often resided in small, unassuming moments. He watched Lily's eyes light up as she spotted a display of pastries and treats, her excitement infectious. Lily picked a few treats and insisted that they share them. Richard hesitated at first, feeling awkward in this informal personal setting, but soon found himself laughing and joining in. The three of them shared stories, spoke of dreams, and discussed the joys of the season. Richard felt a profound sense of belonging, a feeling he had not experienced in years. Each moment with Lily and Anne reminded him of the importance of connection, of giving and receiving attention, care, and understanding. After leaving the cafe, they walked through the nearby park, the trees heavy with snow and decorated with twinkling lights. Children ran past, their laughter echoing through the park, and Richard found himself smiling genuinely, his face relaxed for the first time in years. He watched Lily chase after a small group of ducks, throwing crumbs carefully to feed them. Her joy was uncontained and infectious, and he felt a deep sense of happiness at witnessing it. Anne spoke softly to Richard, sharing her thoughts on raising Lily alone, the challenges she faced, and the joy she found in small victories. Richard listened attentively, realizing that for the first time in a long while, he was truly hearing someone else's experiences, valuing them not for their importance in business or strategy, but for their human significance. He responded with empathy, offering advice when asked, and learning from their perspectives in ways that were unfamiliar yet enriching. As the afternoon wore on, they stumbled upon a small community event, a Christmas fair organized by local volunteers. There were stalls with handmade crafts, food vendors, and performances by local children. Lily's excitement was palpable, and Richard found himself swept up in her enthusiasm. He helped her try games, offered encouragement, and even joined in some of the activities, laughing and cheering with genuine delight. The experience was a reminder of the joy that could be found in simple, unstructured moments, away from the pressures of wealth and status. Richard felt a deep sense of fulfillment, realizing that happiness and connection were not things to be bought or achieved through work. They were found in shared experiences, acts of kindness, and the simple presence of others who cared. Watching Lily's excitement, hearing her laughter, and seeing the pride in Anne's eyes created a warmth within him that was profound and lasting. As evening approached, they returned to a quiet street where the snow reflected the soft glow of streetlights. Richard noticed the small, unassuming beauty of the world around him, the way the snow sparkled, the sound of distant laughter, the smell of baked goods from nearby shops. It was a stark contrast to the sterile, polished environments he was accustomed to in his professional life. Yet it was in this simplicity that he found true joy. They stopped near a small park bench, and Lily insisted they sit for a moment, sharing stories of past Christmases and future hopes. Richard told her about his own childhood memories, the games he used to play, and the traditions that had once filled his life with joy. Lily listened intently, her eyes wide with curiosity and admiration. She asked questions, drawing out memories Richard had long kept buried, and in doing so, helped him reconnect with parts of himself he had forgotten. Anne shared her experiences as a mother, the small triumphs and struggles of raising Lily alone. Richard listened with genuine interest, offering support and encouragement. The conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter, reflections, and moments of quiet understanding. Each shared experience strengthened the bond between them, creating a sense of family, warmth, and belonging that had been absent from Richard's life for far too long. As night fell, they walked back toward the restaurant where they had first dined together. The streets were quiet, the snow falling gently, creating a serene, magical atmosphere. Richard felt a sense of peace, a rare and precious feeling that came not from achievement or power, but from simple human connection. He realized that life, even for someone who had spent so long in isolation, could offer unexpected joy, love, and meaningful experiences. Dinner that evening was filled with laughter and warmth. Lily shared her excitement for Christmas morning, and Richard engaged with genuine curiosity and delight. Anne spoke softly, sharing her reflections on the day, and Richard responded with empathy and understanding. The conversation flowed effortlessly, filled with moments of joy, vulnerability, and connection. Lily handed Richard another small card she had prepared, decorated with snowflakes and little hearts. The words inside read, "You are part of our family now." Richard held the card close, feeling a warmth in his heart that he had not felt in decades. It was a simple gesture, yet it carried profound meaning, a testament to the power of kindness, innocence, and human connection. As they left the restaurant, Richard felt a renewed sense of purpose and hope. The snow continued to fall softly, covering the city in a blanket of white reflecting the lights and warmth of the season. He realized that the walls he had built around himself were not insurmountable. The connections he had made, the laughter he had shared, and the kindness he had experienced were reminders that life, even for someone who had long believed themselves alone, could be filled with joy, love, and meaningful experiences. For the first time in years, Richard felt a profound sense of belonging, a quiet happiness and a renewed belief in the simple, transformative power of human connection. The following morning, Richard woke with a sense of warmth he had not felt in years. The city outside was still covered in snow, and the sunlight reflected softly off the icy streets. He remembered the moments he had shared with Lily and Anne over the past few days, and a feeling of gratitude settled over him. For the first time, he realized that happiness could be found not in wealth, power, or success, but in the simplicity of connection, kindness, and love. After a quiet breakfast, he dressed warmly and set out to meet Lily and Anne. The snow crunched beneath his feet as he approached the park where they had agreed to meet. Lily spotted him immediately, waving her mittened hands with excitement. Richard's heart swelled with affection for the little girl whose courage and innocence had transformed his Christmas. Anne greeted him with a smile, sensing the change that had taken place in Richard. There was a softness to him now, a presence that had been absent in previous years. They walked together through the park, Lily leading the way with boundless energy and curiosity. She pointed out every small detail, the sparkle of icicles on tree branches, the tracks of birds in the snow, and the glittering lights on distant buildings. Richard listened and observed, realizing how much he had missed noticing the beauty in the simple things around him. They came across a small group of children building a snowman. Lily ran to join them, and Richard followed at a careful distance, smiling as he watched her interactions. The children welcomed her warmly, and soon Richard found himself engaging with the other parents, exchanging greetings and small talk. He felt a sense of community he had long been disconnected from, a sense of belonging that was both comforting and invigorating. After some time, they found a quiet bench and sat together, sharing a thermos of hot chocolate and a small assortment of pastries. Lily chattered about her plans for Christmas morning, the gifts she hoped to receive, and the stories she had been told by her friends. Richard listened, genuinely engaged, and shared stories from his own childhood, memories of winter days spent playing in the snow, decorating the tree, and gathering with family. The conversation was filled with laughter, curiosity, and moments of reflection. Anne spoke softly about the challenges she faced as a single mother, the difficulties of balancing work, school, and parenting, and the joy she found in watching Lily grow. Richard responded with empathy and understanding, offering encouragement and advice. He realized that his life had been so focused on work and achievement that he had forgotten the value of listening, of being present, and of connecting with others in meaningful ways. As the afternoon progressed, they decided to visit a local charity that was collecting toys and food for families in need. Lily insisted on helping, and Richard followed her lead, participating in the collection and interacting with the volunteers. The experience was humbling and eye-opening, reminding Richard of the broader world beyond his own experiences. He felt a profound sense of purpose and fulfillment. recognizing that small acts of kindness could have a lasting impact. They spent the remainder of the day visiting local markets, enjoying the sights and sounds of the city decorated for Christmas. Richard found himself laughing at Lily's excitement, sharing in her curiosity, and appreciating the beauty of the season through her eyes. Anne observed the transformation in Richard with quiet satisfaction, knowing that the bond forming between them was genuine and heartfelt. As evening fell, they returned to a quiet cafe to enjoy a warm meal. The atmosphere was cozy, filled with the scent of baked goods and the soft murmur of conversations. Richard felt a deep sense of comfort and belonging as they shared the meal together. Lily told stories of her favorite memories from the day, and Richard responded with warmth and genuine interest. Anne joined in, sharing her reflections and creating a conversation filled with laughter, empathy, and understanding. After dinner, they walked through the snow-covered streets, the city lights reflecting off the ice and creating a magical glow. Richard noticed the small details, the way the snow clung to the branches, the gentle sound of distant laughter, the glow of lights in the windows of nearby homes. He felt a profound sense of peace and contentment, realizing that these simple moments were the essence of life's true joy. They stopped near a small park bench where Lily insisted they sit for a final reflection on the day. Richard shared his gratitude, expressing how much the past few days had meant to him. He spoke of the loneliness he had carried for so long, and how their friendship had brought warmth, laughter, and a sense of purpose into his life. Lily listened intently, her small hand resting on his, a gesture of trust and affection. Anne nodded, her eyes reflecting the quiet happiness she felt witnessing this transformation. Lily handed Richard another handmade card, this one decorated with stars and hearts. Inside, the words read, "Thank you for being our friend and family." Richard held the card close, feeling a deep warmth in his heart. It was a simple gesture, yet it symbolized the profound impact that human connection, kindness, and shared experiences could have on a life that had long been filled with isolation. As the night deepened, they walked back toward their homes, the snow falling softly around them. Richard felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose. The walls he had built around himself over the years were no longer impenetrable. The laughter, warmth, and connection he had experienced with Lily and Anne had transformed his understanding of life. He realized that true happiness came from relationships, shared experiences, and the willingness to be open and present with others. In the following weeks, Richard continued to spend time with Lily and Anne, creating memories, celebrating small moments, and supporting one another. He became more engaged in his community, volunteering his time and resources to help those in need. The lessons he had learned from the simple act of kindness extended beyond the holiday season, shaping his interactions and perspective on life. Richard's home, once a place of solitude, now welcomed laughter, conversation, and shared experiences. The dining table, once a symbol of isolation, became a gathering place for stories, meals, and connection. The lessons of kindness, empathy, and presence had taken root, transforming not only his Christmas but the way he approached life. Through his friendship with Lily and Anne, Richard discovered that it was never too late to change, to connect, and to find joy. The loneliness that had once defined him was replaced by warmth, belonging, and love. He realized that the greatest gift of all was not wealth, power, or success, but the simple, profound experience of being present with others, sharing moments of joy, and opening one's heart to connection. As the season continued, Richard reflected on the transformation he had undergone. The encounter with Lily, her innocence, and her courage had set in motion a journey of rediscovery and healing. He understood that life's true richness lay in the relationships we cultivate, the kindness we offer, and the presence we bring to one another. The lessons of this Christmas would stay with him forever, guiding him toward a life filled with warmth, connection, and meaningful experiences. Even after the holiday season had passed, Richard found that the warmth and joy he had experienced with Lily and Anne remained with him. The snow had melted from the streets, and the city was slowly returning to its usual rhythm. But a new rhythm had taken root in Richard's life, one defined by connection, kindness, and the awareness of the small, meaningful moments that made life rich. Richard woke early one morning, sunlight streaming through the windows, and felt a sense of anticipation. He dressed carefully and prepared to visit Lily and Anne, who had invited him to spend a day helping with a small community project. Richard had grown accustomed to living in a world of meetings, deadlines, and corporate responsibilities, but he now felt drawn to activities that allowed him to connect with others in a genuine way. He packed a small bag, bringing items he thought might be helpful, and set out into the city streets that were quiet but alive with people beginning their day. Lily spotted him from a distance, her small frame bounding toward him with energy that was as contagious as ever. Richard bent down to greet her with a smile, feeling the warmth of her enthusiasm spread through him. Anne followed, her calm presence grounding the two of them. Together they made their way to a local community center that had organized a project to clean up a nearby park and create a safe space for children to play. Richard's heart lifted at the sight of the volunteers and participants working together, the energy of cooperation filling the crisp morning air. Richard joined Lily and Anne in collecting supplies, gathering tools, and speaking with the volunteers. He felt a sense of purpose in the tasks, and the simple act of contributing sparked a fulfillment he had not felt in years. As they worked, Lily chatted nonstop, asking questions, pointing out small details, and sharing her observations. Richard listened attentively, marveling at her curiosity and insight, realizing that her perspective was opening his eyes to the beauty and potential in even the smallest aspects of life. The hours passed quickly as they cleaned paths, planted small flowers, and repaired playground equipment. Richard found himself laughing at Lily's enthusiasm and jokes, interacting with other volunteers and discovering the joy of teamwork and collaboration. Anne observed the transformation in Richard with quiet satisfaction, noting how fully engaged he was, how naturally he was connecting with others, and how much light he brought into the space simply by being present. During a short break, they gathered on a bench sipping water and sharing small snacks. Richard listened as Lily told stories of her friends, her school adventures, and her hopes for the future. He shared stories from his own past, childhood memories, experiences of learning and growing, and the lessons he had acquired through both mistakes and achievements. The conversation flowed effortlessly, filled with laughter, reflection, and moments of shared understanding. Richard realized that the depth of connection he felt in these exchanges was far richer than any recognition or reward he had ever received in his professional life. As the day wore on, the project began to show visible progress. The park was cleaner, the playground safer, and the small flower beds brought bursts of color to the landscape. Children from the neighborhood joined in, laughing and playing as they helped water the plants or place decorations on the playground equipment. Richard felt a sense of fulfillment and contentment, understanding that contribution, connection, and kindness were the true measures of a meaningful life. When the work was done, they stood back to admire the results. The park looked inviting and cared for, and the volunteers exchanged smiles and quiet congratulations. Richard felt a profound satisfaction, realizing that the day's efforts had not only improved the park, but had also strengthened the bonds between the participants. He recognized that shared experiences, even those that involved hard work and effort, created lasting joy and connection. As they walked back through the city streets, Richard reflected on how much his life had changed over the past weeks. The loneliness that had once defined him had been replaced with warmth, purpose, and the understanding that life's richness lay in relationships and shared experiences. Lily's simple act of kindness on Christmas Eve had set in motion a transformation that extended far beyond the holiday season. He felt gratitude for her courage, her innocence, and her ability to see the good in others. They stopped at a small cafe for a warm meal, the smell of freshly baked goods and coffee filling the air. Richard felt comfortable, relaxed, and fully engaged in the moment. Lily shared stories of her day at school, her friends, and her dreams, while Anne added reflections and insights from her perspective as a mother. Richard responded with genuine interest and empathy, recognizing that listening and being present were among the most valuable contributions he could make to the lives of others. After their meal, they wandered through a quiet street, passing decorated windows and observing the small joys in everyday life. Richard felt a sense of wonder at the simple beauty of the city, the way the sunlight glinted off the surfaces, the soft sounds of distant conversation, the fleeting moments of interaction that made the world feel alive and connected. He realized that these moments, often overlooked in the pursuit of wealth or success, were the true essence of life's value. They came across a small charity shop that was accepting donations for families in need. Lily's eyes lit up with excitement, insisting that they contribute. Richard participated willingly, offering both resources and time to help those less fortunate. The act of giving, the opportunity to make a tangible difference in the lives of others, brought a deep sense of fulfillment and joy. Richard understood that compassion and generosity, no matter how small, had the power to transform lives and create lasting bonds. As evening approached, they returned to a quiet park where Lily insisted on a small celebration of their day's accomplishments. They sat on a bench, sharing snacks and stories, reflecting on the joy of the day. Richard expressed his gratitude for the experiences, the connections, and the lessons he had learned. He recognized that the true value of life lay not in material wealth or status, but in the relationships, kindness, and meaningful moments he shared with others. Lily handed Richard another handmade card, this one decorated with vibrant colors and small drawings of trees, birds, and flowers. Inside, the words read, "Thank you for being our friend and for helping others." Richard felt a deep warmth in his heart, holding the card close as a reminder of the profound impact that human connection and acts of kindness could have on a life once defined by solitude. As night fell, they walked together toward their homes, the city quiet and peaceful. Richard felt a profound sense of hope, purpose, and belonging. The journey that began with a simple invitation on Christmas Eve had blossomed into a life-changing experience, reshaping his understanding of happiness, fulfillment, and the meaning of life. He realized that the walls he had built around himself could be softened, that connection and compassion were accessible, and that joy could be found in the smallest gestures and shared moments. In the weeks that followed, Richard continued to engage with Lily, Anne, and their community. He volunteered his time, resources, and energy, forming bonds with people from all walks of life. He discovered the joy of being fully present, of listening, of sharing experiences and kindness. The transformation he had undergone was profound, reshaping his life in ways that extended far beyond the holiday season. Richard's home, once a place of isolation and quiet, now welcomed laughter, conversation, and warmth. The dining table, which had symbolized loneliness, became a space for shared meals, stories, and connection. The lessons he had learned about compassion, presence, and human connection became guiding principles, influencing his interactions and shaping a life rich with purpose and fulfillment. Through his friendship with Lily and Anne, Richard discovered that it was never too late to change, to grow, and to find joy. The loneliness that had once dominated his life was replaced with warmth, connection, and meaningful experiences. He understood that the greatest gifts were not material but human. The bonds we cultivate, the kindness we offer, and the presence we bring to each other.